Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. Thanks to Mark Dolan as well for a great show between 6 and 10. We're going to continue that conversation. And if you do have comments on that fascinating and very revealing interview with Dale Vince, where he refused to say that he didn't want Hamas to be part of a Palestinian state, well, you can give me a ring about that as well. We'll look back on that interview. We'll have a clip of it. 0344 499 1000. If you have comments, you're more than welcome to put them on this show. Unlike Dale Vince, we will be dealing in facts on this programme. So we will do that with the Shadow Foreign Minister Wendy Morton in a moment. We'll also talk about the police cover-up over Rotherham grooming gangs. That is something which is continuing. Labour plummeting to a new low in polls after the Rayner and Mandelson scandals as well. A smuggler who says that the UK must deport 2,000 people a week to stop small boats. And Estonia seeking NATO consultation after Russian jets violate the airspace. This has happened on a number of different occasions. It happened in Poland to a degree with drones as well. So what do you think about all of this? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll get the latest from Simon Calder, the travel guru, as well, about what on earth is going on at Heathrow and many European airports because of the systems there. There's been a cyber attack. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the Trump visit. Of course, Laurie Laird and Claire Pearsall will be with us, a US economic and political commentator and a former government advisor on immigration. We'll talk to us a little bit later on. But as always, it's not just about the guests, it's about you. 0344 499 1000. I want to get your thoughts on the air between now and 12:30. The number, of course, as I said, 0344 499 1000. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute, please. 0344 499 1000. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on that number as well. Let's get the conversation started. Let's get you on the air as well. I can see the phones going already, and it'll be great to hear your thoughts on everything that we're discussing today. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, unlike Dale Vince, I want to disagree with Keir Starmer. I don't think a Palestinian state should be recognised. I don't think it helps at all. I think it actually hinders. I think it rewards Hamas. And that is something that Kemi Badenoch has said today. We'll talk to one of our colleagues, Wendy Morton, in just a second. We're asking you the question, should the UK recognise a Palestinian state? That's the question we're asking today. Does it help in any way? There are 147 states around the world who do it, so will 4 more make a difference, or will it just be welcomed by Hamas, as indeed it has been already? Let's remind ourselves of what the Prime Minister said about recognising a Palestinian state back in July.
I've always said that we will recognise a Palestinian state as a contribution to a proper peace process at the moment of maximum impact for the two-state solution. With that solution now under threat, this is the moment to act. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September.
So the United Nations General Assembly is this week. It's in New York. That is what Keir Starmer is going to do. He thinks it will help the peace process there. I don't think it will at all. I don't think it actually is a peace process. I think it's a bombing process at the moment. The US President, Donald Trump, was in the UK this week, of course, on his second state visit. He disagrees with the UK stance.
Hamas said that they're going to put the hostages up as bait. They're going to put the hostages in front of any attack. And that's pretty brutal. We haven't heard that one in a long time. So we have to remember that. So I have a disagreement with the Prime Minister on that score. Okay? One of our few disagreements, actually.
Well, it's Donald Trump speaking this week, and thank you to Vincent in North Yorkshire. He says Hamas will see Dale Vince as nothing more than a useful idiot. He is everything that is wrong with the Champagne Socialists, says Vincent in North Yorkshire. We will play a bit of Dale Vince's interview with Mark Dolan. I thought it was very revealing. Mark asked him on a number of occasions, does he want to see the eradication of Hamas? Answer came there, none. Well, there was an answer, but it wasn't a definitive one. Let's speak to Wendy Morton MP. She is a shadow foreign minister, a Conservative, of course. Wendy, thank you for joining us this morning. Should the UK recognise a Palestinian state?
Good morning, Peter. I just think what Keir Starmer, what the Prime Minister's come out with is just plain wrong. I don't think we should be recognising the Palestinian state. I think it's almost along the lines of rewarding terrorism. I know Kemi Badenoch has come out very strongly on this morning. So has the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel. I mean, it just strikes me that what the focus should be on is trying to find that long-lasting peace that everybody so badly wants, and stability in the region, not sort of charging ahead to recognise Palestine. And I do really worry, Peter. I really worry that this is just a further indication of a Prime Minister who's actually very weak, and he's doing this more to satisfy his own backbenchers as opposed to actually play a really strong part on the global stage. That's my biggest worry here. Well,
it's really interesting you mentioned that, Wendy. I think your assessment is 100% correct in terms of the backbenchers. I don't think really this is about Keir Starmer's thoughts in the Middle East at all, or on a Palestinian state. I think it's so much more about the threat from Labour, from pro-Gaza MPs. There are a few of those who are joining the chaotic Your Party. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. We're also talking about the fact that there are many MPs in his own party who want to recognise a Palestinian state. I don't think he necessarily wanted to do this. He said words to that effect, actually, and then sort of changed his mind, essentially, on this. He also talked about conditions that don't appear to be part of the conversation anymore. Lots of conditions on Israel in order to not do this, but very few conditions on Hamas, for example. I just wonder what the right way to deal with this is, because I actually was in Israel last week. I received a number of briefings, including from the former National Security Advisor, who told me that look, this isn't about hearts and minds. This isn't about convincing people who are Palestinians to like Israel. This is simply about the defence of Israel at the moment. And in his view, the strategy actually hasn't changed. It's about the eradication of Hamas, not entirely as an organisation, but as with any form of military capability. I just wonder if you think this country should support that.
What I think, Peter, is, well, for a number of months I've sat in the House of Commons and I've seen that that strength of feeling on the opposition benches, which now seems to be driving the Prime Minister rather than actually what's on the ground. Going back to your point about what needs to be done, I come back to my point around peace, stability, and actually the prosperity of the region. And what I find really, really worrying is that it's almost as if the Prime Minister isn't considering the hostages in all of this.
Yeah.
That, to me, is what the focus should be on. As part of any peace process, we should be talking about civilians, hostages, releasing those people. They're so often the innocent victims of conflict. And yet here we are with a Prime Minister who, back in July said that this was going to be his big contribution to the peace process. I'm sorry, but I just do not see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that makes sense. Let's talk to you about another few stories, the one in, one out, as it's so called. I mean, we know about 5,500 people have actually arrived since the policy was announced. We also know that 3 people have left our shores. There's a smuggler in the papers today saying that the UK has to deport 2,000 people a week to stop small boats. You're a Conservative. The Conservatives didn't properly deal with this in 14 years. Will Labour do anything better?
Well, so far they haven't, have they? I mean, that maybe is a bit flippant of me, but I mean, the one in, one out scheme that they hailed a few weeks ago, we've seen how many go back today. To date, 3, and then 3 will be coming back as an exchange. The one in, one out doesn't result in any change whatsoever. And we've got a week when there's 1,000 migrants have come over the channel. So I think. We need, the country now is really, really fed up with this. I appreciate we should have done more, but the situation has just continued to get worse. So we often talk about what are the pull factors and what are the push factors. Well, the new Home Secretary needs to get a grip now, in my view.
Well, the new Justice Secretary thinks it's brilliant. He thinks it's marvellous, and you're talking nonsense, Wendy. Let's hear from David Lammy in terms of what he's been saying.
It has been very important to increase the numbers of people that we are returning to the countries from which they are from, and that's gone up 14%. I think over 35,000 people has been returned, and I played an important role in that as Foreign Secretary, and that work must continue. This pilot with France is a milestone because it sends an immediate deterrence to people, many of them coming obviously across the water, that we will send them back. And it is our hope to see that grow over the coming months and years, because we have to bear down on the gangs, and we have to smash the model effectively, and we have to ensure that those who do not have a right to be here are sent back to the countries from which they're from.
David Lammy there, the Deputy Prime Minister. Why is he wrong, Wendy?
I mean, it's not a milestone, is it? 1 in, 1 out. 3 have gone this week. 3 will be coming in return, and 1,000 have still come across the English Channel. You can talk these things up, but the bottom line here is that we are still seeing, well, actually, the highest number of crossings this year so far. So to me, it's not enough. It's not working, and the government needs to get a grip on it.
There'll be an awful lot of people worried about another international situation. As a shadow Foreign Office Minister, and you've been a Minister in the Foreign Office yourself as well previously in the Conservative administration, Wendy, about what's happening in Estonia. It wants a NATO consultation after Russian jets have violated its airspace. It's also been the case with drones in Poland previously. We talked about that last week on the programme. Are you concerned about this, or is this just Putin flexing his muscles? Or, in regard to the excuses over the drones in Poland, is it just drones that went off course? Do you think that's a plausible excuse?
I don't think there should be any excuses here at all, Peter. It worries me. It shows that in Europe, in NATO, there can be no place for complacency whatsoever. Whether they were drones that just happened to go astray, whether it was provocation, I mean, we will probably think one thing, and Putin will say it was something else. But the key message for me here, though, really is that Europe, NATO, as a force, need to continue to pull together. However you look at it, we have a war on the edge of Europe. Putin illegally invaded Ukraine. That is a situation that we are facing. And as you rightly say, in the last week or so, we've seen drones into Polish airspace. Today, we've now seen flights over Estonian airspace. I genuinely believe, we have to be really alert to this.
Wendy, thank you. That is Wendy Morton there, who's the Shadow Foreign Office Minister. She's a Conservative, of course. Thank you to her. Thanks to everybody who's been in touch. Lots of people getting in touch about the fact that Keir Starmer at the UN General Assembly this week is going to recognise a Palestinian state on behalf of the UK. 147 countries do that already. It looks as if another 4 will do it this week. Of course, many of those 147 aren't democracies. Thank you to Elisa in Chelmsford, who says one of the biggest anti-Semites was on your show earlier. I'm sure Dale Vince would deny being an anti-Semite. He spewed blood libel upon blood libel. There is no genocide. The report has been proven to be false, as had the one on famine. She's referring to a UN committee's report this week. Israel's 20% Arab population not only are allowed to vote, but they're part of the Knesset, the parliament in Israel. Israel is not an occupier and does not hold hostages. What a disgrace Dale Vince is, a useful idiot for terrorists. And as I've said time and time again, recognising the fictional Palestine is a reward for the October 7th massacre. Have a good day and keep fighting for the Jewish people, says Elisa. Bill in Thailand says Palestinian recognition by Starmer. What's the point? Hamas has the point of a gun at Israel. That will never change. Starmer is not worried about the hostages, just his political career. Great show, says Bill. Leslie says Starmer seems to reward terrorists, as his former leader did, not only with Palestine, but also reopening the Northern Ireland framework. We did talk about that yesterday. Another person says they should not recognise a Palestinian state. They have many Arabic states they can go to. Israel has one. He is a traitor through and through. Dale Vince could not say he wanted Hamas gone. That said it all. That was the most revealing part of that interview. Mark asked him on a number of occasions, straightforwardly, do you want Hamas gone? Should Hamas go? Should Hamas be any part of a future Palestinian state? And Dale Vince equivocated on that. He shouldn't have. He should have been as straightforward as so many of our viewers and listeners are, by saying quite simply, Hamas are terrorists. They should go. They should disarm. They should not have any part of a Palestinian state. There is a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. It's a really tough situation for the people there. There are innocent civilians dying. That can stop today. It can stop right now if the 48 hostages are released, the bodies are given back, and the living hostages are given back today. And Hamas says that it's not going to be any part of a future Gaza or Palestinian state. That conflict can end right now. Louise is in Kent and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Louise, you're very welcome to the programme. You're the first caller of the show today. What would you like to say?
Hi, well, just 2 comments actually. Firstly, I've just worked out 3 out this week, migrants. 50,000 have come in for Labour. It's not a milestone because it would take 320 years to get rid of the 50,000 that have come in already.
To say nothing of the ones that continue to come in every single day. We know, we don't know the total for yesterday, but we know it was hundreds.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is that the 50,000 have come in since they came in, right? They've got rid of 3 this week.
Yeah.
It would take 320
You're
years
absolutely
to get
right.
rid of that 50,000. Right.
Yeah.
So that was on. The other one was about the Dale Vince comment. Right, the comment I have to make was where he is so wrong, but then we see him making lots of money out of solar as well, out of Labour, apart from that. But if you think about it, Israel has got one of the best air defence systems in the world.
Correct, yeah, the Iron Dome.
Iron Dome, David Sling and the Arrow 3. Now it's developed a new one. Well, the only reason it's got that is because it's constantly dealing with rockets coming in from everywhere, all the way around, plus its own citizens, plus Ukraine, open up all the tubes and everything else for its citizens to go in case of air attack, shelter. Do Hamas open up the tunnels? No, they don't. They've said this week they are using the hostages as bait in Gaza City. They've also been saying to their citizens, don't move out of Gaza City. They have not allowed elections for the 20 years they've been in. And every single news outlet you read, depending on which side of the lot it's on, you get different views, and so it's really hard to make out exactly what's going on.
And this is the problem, Louise. This is the problem.
We also see that they say, oh, well, you cannot let journalists in Gaza, and yet we regularly see pictures of journalists of various groups in Gaza.
Well, are they journalists as well, is the question I would ask. So
the whole thing at the moment is so confusing, but we never hear about these other countries where there is some real genocide going on in places in Africa. But also, if Israel really wanted to put genocide, honestly, they could do it in a day.
You're absolutely right. All of those points are correct, Louise, and thank you for them. The journalist point, I actually disagree with Israel. I think journalists from international organisations should be allowed to go in, and I think there'd be a lot more truth coming out of Gaza if that was the case. There are people in Gaza who say they're journalists. Well, it's very difficult to operate there unless you're putting out what Hamas wants you to put out. And we know, of course, that the BBC has broadcast a documentary, I use the term loosely, which was narrated by the son of a member of Hamas, a senior ranking member of Hamas, one of their ministers, if you call them that, in their government, again, if you call it that. Thank you to Dan in Kent. He says 12 minutes to respond to the invasion of NATO airspace is very worrying. Peter, listen, it's a big issue, but there are other issues to talk about as well. Dan, we will talk about it more a bit later on in the programme in greater depth. Ernie says, Starmer recognising Palestine as a state. Will it stop the killings on both sides? No. Will it stop the killings by one side or the other? No. So what is the agenda? If you haven't got something to say that will help you stop the killings, it's best to say nothing. You're just stirring the pot of a horrendous situation. Rich in Yorkshire, with regarding to the Prime Minister announcing that the UK will recognise a Palestinian state, the decision should be made by the people of this country, not a communist like him. Brad in Cambridge says recognising Palestine is purely virtue signalling by Starmer and can't be viewed as anything other than rewarding terrorism. Starmer is clearly using the situation as a political football to placate his Muslim voters to stop them joining Corbyn, says Brad in Cambridge. Well, there was some news actually earlier today about your party. This is the one that Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn have set up. She is now instructing lawyers because of the serious problems, the three different factions that are there with your party. It is a bit of a bin fire. Certainly, we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. We'll talk as well about recognising a Palestinian state, and don't worry, Dan, we'll also talk about the fact that there's been an incursion into Estonian airspace by Russia as well. Zoe Billingham will join us for the first time. She's director of IPPR North, a think tank, and Max Harrison is a Kent County councillor for Sheppey for Reform UK. They're on the debate desk next. We'll have a conversation with them. We'll have a conversation with you as well. Let us know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
These backbenchers who don't want to, stop giving anybody benefits because it might be bad for them. Basically much of this borrowing is presumably being spent just to pay back interest on previous borrowing.
That's right. We're borrowing to pay the interest and to pay ever higher public sector pay rises, which is one of the main reasons that inflation is stubbornly high at 3.8%. That's what's worrying the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee. So we're in a doom loop.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch. Penny in Essex says, good morning, Peter. Listening to Dale Vince made me cringe. That was on Mark Dolan's show. We'll play you a clip of what he said a little bit later on in the programme. A big Labour donor supporting Hamas. This is in Penny's view that he supported Hamas. I'm not sure Dale Vince would agree with that. But certainly he was asked on a number of occasions, do you want Hamas to not be part of a future Gaza? He said he didn't want any terrorist organisation to be. And is Starmer recognising Palestine a victory for Hamas? And is he doing this from his personal conviction or pressure from his backbenchers who rely, some of them, on the Muslim vote for their seats? These people keep going on about genocide, but what do they think Hamas is doing to Israel? Hamas continually poke the bear, and Hamas has to be destroyed, says Penny in Essex. It's absolutely clear, Penny, that a lot of that makes sense. Of course, there are many Muslims who do not support Hamas, but some do, of course, and that is a big, big issue, not just here in the UK, but right around the world. Lynn says, in a word, Peter, no, Starmer wrong yet again, as is Dale Vince. He's a very scary man regarding his views and ignorance. Well, we're going to deal with the facts now with Max Harrison, who is Kent County Councillor for Sheppey for Reform UK. And Zoe Billingham joins us for the first time on the debate desk. You're very welcome, Zoe, as are you, Max. Zoe is Director of IPPR North, the Institute of Public Policy Research. Zoe, let's give you the first word on this. Should the UK recognise a Palestinian state?
I think absolutely yes, there should be a two-state solution for Palestine. Look, when we look back in history and our role in the Balfour Declaration back in 1917, it was done on the basis that nothing shall be done that prejudices the civil and religious rights of the Palestinian people. And so that was baked into how we handled the creation of Israel back in the 20th century, and I think we should be sticking by that. And the only way to secure long-lasting peace, not just a ceasefire now, but long-lasting peace in Israel and Palestine, is to bring forward that two-state solution that the government's proposing.
So 147 countries recognise a Palestinian state at the moment. Will 4 more make any difference, or will they just give succour to Hamas, who have welcomed this?
So I think it absolutely does make a difference what the UK's position is. We still have a very strong voice on the international stage, and of course us being part of NATO and other groupings means that we do have considerable influence. So it will mean a lot when the government moves to do this later this month.
Where is Palestine?
In the Middle East.
Yeah, where is it though?
Well,
what's the capital? Who's the leader?
Well, okay, you're referencing Hamas now. And
I'm not referencing. I'm saying. I'm simply asking you.
You're referencing Hamas now.
If you want to talk about, if you want to recognise a Palestinian state,
yeah.
Where is Palestine? Who's the leader, and where's the capital?
Okay, so we have the Gaza Strip, and we have the West Bank. Those are the two parts of recognised where Palestinian people live.
The West Bank is a disputed territory. I mean, Israel has for Zone A in the West Bank, Israel has security responsibility and administrative control.
There's a responsibility that the Palestinian people have a right to stay.
Okay, you may well believe that.
Palestine.
You may well believe that, but the practicalities of a Palestinian state are not there. So again, I ask you, where is it? Who's the leader, and where's the capital?
So at the moment, of course, you're referencing Hamas, which has been designated a terrorist organisation.
Do you think they're terrorists?
We are talking here about the Palestinian people and the rights of the Palestinian people, not of Hamas or any future government or setup.
They voted for Hamas. Hamas are supported by many Palestinian people, and we know that there are loads of Palestinian people, including in Gaza, who never thought to think, hold on a second, there's an electrician coming in who is putting forward some infrastructure below a hospital. There are people who are buying extra food because they're having hostages. At what point did a lot of those people actually raise the flag and say, hold on a second, there's a hostage in this building, or alternatively that Hamas are building tunnels there? The thing that happens, coming from Northern Ireland, I know the terrorists can be supported when they swim in the sea of people who support them. And I'm not saying every single Palestinian supports Hamas. I'm not saying every single person in Gaza supports Hamas. There are innocent civilians there. Many of them have died. I don't want that to happen at all. I don't want a single innocent civilian to die.
Over 60,000 have died.
Those are Hamas figures. Those are Hamas figures, and you're believing that and you're swallowing that, Zoe.
I think that's actually UN that has.
No, what happens? No, it's not. No, it's not. That's incorrect. What happens is Hamas tells them, and the UN put it out and say it's true, and it's not. And the UN have a lot to answer for, including an UNRWA in those schools where they're indoctrinating children.
Look, I think you and I might disagree on the absolute figure, but we're talking of thousands of casualties, okay? This is people dying as the direct impact of military action in Gaza. And you've said yourself, look, that the Palestinian people cannot be held to account for the actions of Hamas. So I think we have to be really careful here. The whole point of the two-state solution is to protect Palestinian people, nothing to do with Hamas, actually. So I think Hamas being drawn into it, and by implication, the Palestinian people, I think is totally wrong.
Surely it's very embarrassing for Keir Starmer to be rewarded and to be said to Hamas that this is something that they welcome.
Well, actually, you know, neither Netanyahu nor Hamas, you know, they've shifted their position on whether actually they accept a two-state solution. This is the international community now, including hopefully the UK.
What about the Israeli people? What about the Palestinian people? I mean, the Israeli people do not want a two-state solution. Hamas don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution, don't they, Max? They want a one-state solution that doesn't involve Israel. That's in their charter.
No, of course it is. And I think, look, it is an impossibility, it's a two-state solution. I mean, we're talking about 7 million Jews and 7 million Palestinians in one particular area. And history, as Zoe's pointed out, it isn't bright. You know, when Israel gave away parts of South Lebanon, you know, all that happened was Hezbollah started increasing their attacks. My concern is you've got Keir Starmer trying to be this international hero, when actually in his own country, you know, figures came out the other day. We've lost 127,000 jobs. We have a budget which they can't even put together because we have a £50 billion black hole. And since January of this year, 31,000 men have illegally broken into our country. So I'm sure there are noble reasons on both sides of the argument, but this is an impossibility. It will only lead, not to peace, but I think to greater divisions. And again, I think you're right. Although the UK used to be a superpower, I think at the moment, with the leadership that we have, we're not seen as that anymore. I think we are on the side of terrorists if we pursue this.
My colleague Mark Dolan interviewed Dale Vince, the ecotricity billionaire who supports Labour. He's given donations to them and other parties as well. Let's just have a look at that interview. It happened about 45 minutes ago, and in terms of what Dale Vince actually said.
What we do for Israel is we give them legitimacy by allowing them into these high-profile competitions as if they're a normal state, when in fact they're a terrorist state. They're beyond any control. Even the US can't control them any longer. They attack whoever they want. They bombed Qatar last week. Actually they bombed the team from Hamas that are negotiating peace with Israel. That's how much they don't want peace.
Dale Vince was also asked on a number of occasions whether he wanted Hamas to not be part of a future Gaza. I don't think he gave a clear answer on that. I mean, Israel bombed Qatar because they were bombing Hamas, the Hamas leadership, Max. They weren't bombing civilians in Qatar. They weren't bombing a shopping centre. They weren't bombing a school. They were bombing and trying to get rid of Hamas terrorists in Qatar who have been given succour by Qatar and shelter as well.
No, I completely agree. I think it's disgusting for Dale Vince to claim that Israel is, you know, a terrorist
state.
I mean, that's disgusting. I mean, what actually we've seen recently, I think, in the last few months, you've got those who are complaining on one side because actually, effectively, their side is losing the war. Hamas are terrorists. Anyone who's supporting them should be deeply ashamed of themselves. And again, this idea of a two-state solution, we're asking, essentially, for regime change. Who will take over that regime, Peter? It will be Hamas. These people are not good. Their views on women and homosexuals is disgusting. It's very worrying. And those on the far left, people like Dale Vince, should hang their heads in shame.
Zoe, you want there to be a Palestinian state. You want there to be a two-state solution. If there was a Palestinian state, would you hold elections?
I mean, that would be the inevitable next step.
What happens if Hamas win those elections?
I mean, look, it's up to the Palestinians to then decide who's their government.
So they could decide if Hamas are the governors of a Palestinian state. So what you're asking, and what many in the international community are asking for, is Israel to say, right, you give some level of independence to the Gaza Strip for 20 years. Instead of building, you know, a really good place and a really nice place to live, instead what they did was they attacked on the 7th of October and took a lot of that money to build a network of tunnels which is bigger than the underground in London, then attacked. So what many people are saying, including you to a degree, Zoe, and please tell me I'm wrong, is a Palestinian state which may, let's say it has the West Bank, let's say it has the Golan Heights, let's say it has East Jerusalem, let's say it has Gaza. It may not have all of those, but let's say it has some of those. And in theory, Hamas could be in control.
In theory, yes.
But what if they are?
But look, at the end of the day, we also know that the atrocities that happened on the 7th of October were, you know, led by Hamas, and what has happened to Palestine since has been in consequence of that, as per Israel's actions. So I do think, like, you know, the Palestinians may regard Hamas differently as a result now, but here we are where we are.
But we don't know that.
And Hamas themselves has said, had they known the response of Israel, they wouldn't have done what they said.
Oh,
which
come
obviously...
on. I mean, that's absurd. That's absurd,
hang on,
Zoe. They're always going to retaliate.
They're always going to retaliate, but what I'm saying is that now the Palestinian people can see what happened as a result of Hamas's actions, the devastating attack on the 7th of October.
Where is the evidence?
They might then decide to choose differently.
Well, they might, but where is the...
That's their as a state. We don't interfere in other states' elections.
But we do.
But
we certainly interfere in terms of how other states are run. We've done that on numerous occasions. The point is, Zoe, that if you have a Palestinian state, and if people vote for Hamas, which you want them, which you...
No, don't put words in my mouth.
No, I'm not putting words in my mouth. Sorry, what I'm saying is you want there to be... apologies for that.
Yeah.
Oh, you want there to be elections, and that's fine.
Yes.
But the likelihood is that a body that is totally hostile to Israel, that may actually be a terrorist organisation in Hamas, may be part of that. Now, the international community says they don't want Hamas to be any part of that. But what if the Palestinian people do? What if they have the autonomy and do that?
Well, look, I can't speak for the Palestinian people. Obviously, as I say, in response to what has been happening in Palestine over the last months and years, you know, they may take now a different view to what was taken previously, and I would hope that they did. So,
but we don't know that for sure, do we, Max?
We can't guarantee, of course, we can't guarantee any sort of election outcome.
OK, we don't know that for sure, Max, do we?
But that's the problem with it. We talk about hypotheticals, granted, but if we know, for example, which I think you're right, Peter, it's likely that if we do have fair and free elections, they will vote in Hamas. These are beyond bad faith actors. They not only hate Israel, they hate the West. They hate the United Kingdom. This is my deep confusion with those who are supporting a two-state solution, is that fundamentally you are encouraging, in one way or another, the election of those who hate our country, they hate our values, they hate our sense of democracy. And look, if you look at our interventions in the past in the Middle East, we haven't got a good track record.
Okay.
So, you know, we've got to be very careful how we go about this, but Starmer is wrong, and it's absolutely appalling.
Fundamentally, this is about the Palestinian people and protecting them at this stage, and that's what I'm totally focused on.
OK, and just to be absolutely clear, apologies I wasn't totally clear in my words, Zoe has, from the outset, called Hamas terrorists. That's not something Dale Vince did particularly clearly in any way, and we will be talking more about this. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. We'll talk in a second about Labour plummeting to a new low in the polls. We'll talk as well about the one-in, one-out scheme and about the Palestinian state idea as well. Malcolm in Hampshire says, I would have thought that the thank you from Hamas to Starmer tells you all you need to know. Plenty more to discuss. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mary's been in touch from County Down. She says, by recognising a Palestinian state, Starmer is following a long-standing British government policy of rewarding and facilitating terrorism. The Belfast Agreement rewarded the IRA and put them in government. The recognition of a Palestinian state without any conditions, including the disbandment or surrender of Hamas and decommissioning of Hamas weapons, will similarly reward and empower this vile anti-Semitic genocidal terrorist group. Starmer is a disgrace and his actions are shameful, says Mary. I want to talk now about something else that is a real problem for the Labour government, and that is their poll ratings. Obviously, this week we had the visit of Donald Trump, and certainly that seems to be something that has gone pretty well. We've talked as well about the huge level of investment that is apparently coming our way. Some people worry about the fact that the state visit cost 15 million quid. If we get billions of pounds of investment, perhaps it's worth it. But Labour has plummeted to new lows in the polls after Angela Rayner and the scandal involving her, and indeed Mandelson, the US ambassador. It's interesting how Trump sort of distanced himself from Mandelson as well. Zoe, what is your thought on where Labour are in the polls? We know that Starmer himself is minus 50 in terms of approving versus disapproving. A poll published yesterday put Labour at 16% of the vote. That's the lowest share it's recorded since taking power in July 2024. You can say these are outliers, you can say, you know, different polls go in different directions, but consistently Reform UK has been ahead.
Well, certainly it's a rocky set of polling for the government, there's no denying that. Of course, polls do a little bit change with the wind, and they've only been in government for a year. There's another 3 years to go, 4 years to go. And so, you know, I don't think we should take a snapshot poll
It's not just a snapshot, though. It's consistent, though, isn't it? There have been 70 polls that have put Reform UK
at this
ahead.
At this moment in time, that's absolutely right. And so I think, you know, the government's right to be kind of wondering, okay, well, what are the things that are causing this? And, you know, is it, as you say, the kind of recent kind of political turbulence with Mandelson and Angela Rayner leaving the cabinet? Is it, you know, something else that's going on around what they're doing in government? I think also there's a bit of a communications problem, it seems, from the centre of government to communities about what they're doing, and actually a lot of their flagship policies are getting lost in the noise.
He's now on his, I think, 4th communications director in 5 years. Is the communication the problem, or is what they're actually doing the problem, Zoe?
I think communication is definitely a problem, as you say, for communications advisor in 1 year. And actually, I do think there are some things that they're getting on with that they're not getting credit for. You know, things like the Workers' Rights Bill, things about, you know, building 1.5 million homes. You know, there are some really good flagship policies.
But you ask them. I've interviewed a load of Labour politicians, and I always say, what would you say are the things you've done well in the last 14 months? I try to give them an opportunity just to put their point across. And the thing that comes up time and time again is they mention breakfast clubs. And that's fine, but I mean, breakfast. I don't want any child to go to school without breakfast. I think breakfast clubs are yeah, you were doubting it. They, you know, that's a good thing. But is that really it? Is that it after 14 months, Max?
Look, I mean, if memory serves me right, Peter, we spoke back in May, and you asked me the question: do I seriously think Reform UK can win the next government? And I said yes. And I say that with stronger vigour now. I mean, there's actually 100 polls we've now led in a row. And even in Cardiff, you know, the by-election on Thursday, we got 40%. You know, this is an area we're not supposed to be doing particularly well in, although we know Reform will do very well in Wales next year. I think the people have had enough. And actually, you know, Zoe says, you know, we'll have an election in 4 years' time. I don't think anyone truly believes this government will survive the next 4 years.
Will Keir Starmer lead Labour into the next election? Maybe Andy Burnham?
You're asking me an impossible question. I mean, it's much harder for Labour to get rid of the leader than it is for the Conservatives.
Prefer?
The Conservatives had, what was it, 7 prime ministers in 9 years?
And that, five. Just 5.
Was it 5?
Just I
lost count. And, you know, I'm not sure that did them very well for swapping leader. And I think, you know, we're not a presidential system. It's not all about the PM. It's also about the cabinet. It's also about the other people in communication.
From your perspective, you can wave a magic wand. This is not a this is not an impossible question. This is a very easy question. I can wave a magic wand. In the next election, you can have either Keir Starmer or Andy Burnham leading Labour into the next election? Which would you choose?
Well, you're asking me a political question, and I'm not here to do politics, but I want a stable government for this country, and so I'd rather there wasn't chopping and changing, but it's for the Labour Party to decide who their leader is. I
mean, there was a government minister who said recently to Christian Calgie that Starmer isn't going to survive till Christmas. We've all heard the rumours of what Burnham may or may not be doing up in particularly Manchester parliamentary seats, and I say bring it on. Because I don't think there are very...
You'd like a by-election, wouldn't you?
Let's bring it on, because I think there are very few seats where Labour would actually hold on to now. And this shows that actually there is a mood change in the country, that people have, as I said earlier, had enough. And if they really think that Burnham is their answer, bring it on. Let's have the by-election. Let's stop with the namby-namby talk. I mean, both Kemi and Starmer are gone next May.
Do you think that's true? Do you think that's likely that Kemi Badenoch and Keir Starmer will be gone next May?
I mean, as I say, the Conservative Party seem to be very adept at getting rid of their own leaders, so I'll leave that to them. And equally, Labour, it's a whole different process, and that's a call for them to make.
But we need stability, don't we?
I think we absolutely.
We need stability for business. We need stability for growth.
Exactly, and actually, stability, and as well on the international scene, as per our earlier discussion. I think we can't be chopping and changing too quickly.
Thank you both. We'll come back in a second. We're also going to hear from Simon Calder, the travel guru, after the break about what on earth is going on at Heathrow and lots of other airports right across Europe. We'll get reaction from Max and indeed from Zoe to that as well. Thank you to Elsa, who says, how dare Starmer recognise a Palestinian state on behalf of the British people? Has this been discussed in Parliament? Even if Labour voted for it, why haven't we heard the opinions of those who disagree? Starmer behaves like a dictator without any opposition. He has to go. Well, I think there's plenty of opposition to Starmer. I think he certainly has quite a number of people who disagree with him, and maybe the Conservative Party aren't doing the job they should do in Parliament, but there are plenty of others elsewhere, I think, who are, Elsa. So I respectfully disagree with you on that. We'll talk to Simon Calder after the break. We'll be back in the debate desk with Max and Zoe in just a few minutes. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, there's been a cyber attack on many of our airports and the systems they use across Europe. It's affecting airports in the UK as well. Simon Calder is the travel correspondent of The Independent. Simon, what's happening?
Oh, well, look, Peter, once again, you and I are talking on a busy Saturday about yet more flight disruption. Let me tell you what we know, and this is from the Brussels Airport Administration. They say there was a cyber attack on systems with a third-party provider last night, and that is still causing problems today. London Heathrow have revealed that provider is Collins Aerospace, and the thing that it does is basically it allows airlines to check in passengers and to handle their baggage automatically. You know, it's just one of those things you take for granted. That appears to have been attacked. We don't know who is behind this or indeed what their demands might be, if any, but we can tell the effect. So I've had at least 10 cancellations in and out of Brussels Airport, which appears to be the worst affected. Berlin Airport also warning about delays as a result of this. They've had a couple of cancellations there to Nice and to Amsterdam, and they are also, well, let's just take, for example, flight British Airways 999 coming in from Berlin. That was due, I think, 2.5 hours ago. It's just over the North Sea at the moment, coming in to land at Heathrow, which spells missed connections. And I think that's the big problem today. People on that flight will have been connecting to go across the Atlantic or wherever. They will need to be looked after. And actually going out of London Heathrow to a whole load of places, we've got delays of up to 3 hours, especially to key hubs like Paris, Charles de Gaulle, Amsterdam, Frankfurt and Munich.
So, Simon, if people are travelling later today, maybe they're in their car right now listening to Talk and on their way to an airport. It's not just Heathrow, is it? There are other airports affected, are there? What should they do?
Well, look, the assumption, as always, has to be that your flight will go ahead absolutely as normal. If it doesn't, then that is going to be the airline's responsibility. For instance, you missed your connection in Paris this morning. They have to get you to your destination as soon as possible. The airlines, the airports are stressing that they don't want you there too early. You might be listening to Talk and thinking, right, oh, crikey, we've got a flight this afternoon. Let's get to the airport now. Nope. You will find that Heathrow is saying don't turn up more than 2 hours ahead of a short haul departure, more than 3 hours ahead of a long haul departure, because they basically don't want huge crowds building up. And the airlines, meanwhile, they are furious, because once again, we've got airport problems affecting airlines' bottom lines, because they are the ones who pick up the cost of the disruption. You'll remember going back to March the 21st when Heathrow closed down due to a fire at an electricity substation. That cost them up to £100 million. Hopefully this won't be anything like as disruptive, but it's still going to mean that the airlines, who have to find alternative flights, have to find meals, have to find accommodation for passengers, are going to be picking up the bill. And, well, I'm afraid if you've got a very heavily stretched system, London Heathrow, of course, the busiest two-runway airport in the world, very little scope for any kind of recovery if things start to go wrong. It's looking very, very dismal, I'm afraid.
Simon, thank you. That's Simon Calder there, the travel correspondent of The Independent. Zoe, the cyber attack aspect of this is very worrying, isn't it? The fact that these things can happen and cause such huge disruption.
Absolutely, and you know, for those thousands of people right now who don't know how they're going to be getting home, seeing their loved ones getting to work, whatever it is, it's you know, a big disruption. But as you say, you know, cyber attacks are becoming increasingly frequent. We know that it's being used as a sort of form of warfare, actually. You know, we've seen M&S, we've seen the Co-op have major cyber attacks that have totally disrupted their businesses. So I think, I'm afraid, you know, this is what we're going to have to gear up for.
I interviewed someone about ransomware recently and holding people to ransom. It's a really, really growing and terrible thing. Max, just off the topic, we're back on the debate desk, I should say, with Max Harrison, who's Kent County Councillor for Sheppey for Reform UK, and Zoe Billingham, who's Director of IPPR North, making a visit to London from Manchester. We've had a question from a viewer, Max, who says, with such a huge majority, why does Reform think a Labour government won't last for 4 more years? What circumstance would shorten the term, even if they're unpopular? Why would they not cling on? Reform UK people keep saying it, but can you just explain why? It's called the markets. And it's a very similar situation, I think, we saw on the Truss's... It wasn't an election, though. No, it wasn't, but I think things are different. We haven't seen a third party like this storm the polls. I mean, by-elections we're winning every single week, as I said earlier, and there is a shift. And the longer this goes on, actually, the worse it gets for Labour. We have got Holyrood next year, and we've got the Welsh elections for the Senate. We're going to either form the government in the Senate, or we're going to be the largest party. In Scotland, I reckon we'll get 18 to 20 seats, which is massive for Reform UK, and we'll win thousands of council seats. Simon will then go. There will be no way he can continue, because going into 2027, there will be up to 10,000 elections. We've had numerous prime ministers taking over, not calling an election. I mean, if you're a Labour MP, you're not going to say to your party leader, oh yeah, call an election, we're really far behind in the polls, Reform UK are doing really, really well. Why not cling on till 2029? What's the benefit to go for an election? Well, if you call an election now, you can try and catch Reform off the hoof. I mean, we've got local branches, over 480 now. Give us 4 more years to solidify our base, have 650 constituencies, local branches up and running, where we're canvassing, getting the data. That's why you'd call it now, because at this moment in time, you could maybe sort of catch us off. Give us 4 years, we will win. Let's talk about the other big story of the week, Zoe and Max, about the one-in, one-out scheme. We have 3 people now who've been sent to France, more coming over from France today. Is this scheme going to work, Zoe, do you think?
Well, it's kicked off and it looks like it's working already, and actually, in order to return people who come to the country and don't have a successful asylum claim, you need to have reciprocal agreements with countries. You can't just posit and say that, people are going to be sent back to, dangerous places or places that haven't done an agreement with us. We've now had an agreement with France, and I think that's a real breakthrough. Although one of those 3 people is an Indian man who, in theory, we could have sent back to India. Well, I don't know about this specific case that you raised, but as I say, the countries, that we do this reciprocal arrangements with have to agree it themselves, and France has done that with us, and I think that's a really positive step forward in, reassuring that there is control in the immigration system. Sign of progress, Max? It's a joke. We had 1,000 illegal men break into our country yesterday, and you've got to remember the first attempt. We don't have those official figures, but we do know there's hundreds of people. But the first individual who was tried to be deported through the system, the one who went out, was stopped by legal claims. This will continue all the time. We're part of the ECHR. We know that the government are in talks with other European nations to try and soften it. It will not work. The idea, as I said earlier, we have 31,000 men that have broken into our country illegally, and the public pressure as well in this. I mean, we've now seen an individual, an asylum seeker, has been named now, who has been charged with a rape of a woman in Hyde Park. He is a terrorist from Egypt. Public pressure on this issue will get worse and worse, and the more of these stories that come out and get onto the mainstream, the pressure will hit Labour, it won't work. Could I just say, it's not illegal to apply for asylum in this country, and therefore I think we have to be very careful about what we call illegal immigration. To arrive in this country on a small boat is illegal. And if you then claim asylum, it is not illegal to do so. They shouldn't be allowed it here in the first place. I'm really sorry. They shouldn't be allowed to illegally break into our country. We're coming up to the news. For the final word, Zoe. I would say, look, we need safe and legal routes, and actually, we're IPPR say people should be able to claim asylum from their home country so they don't have to make that dangerous journey. 5 seconds. The average asylum seeker goes through 5 safe countries before they come to UK. It's nonsense. They should be deported, and our country will be a hell of a lot safer. Thank you for a lively debate desk this morning. Zoe Billingham with us for the first time, hopefully not the last time. Max Harrison, a regular. He's Kent County Councillor for Sheppey for Reform UK, and Zoe is Director of IPPR North. Lots more to discuss, including the Estonia question and the migration question. Get your call in 0344 499 1000.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
87222, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space on a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what... Says no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk. It's just gone 11 o'clock. Thank you very much for your company. Loads to discuss between now and 12:30. The one-in, one-out deal, is it working? Well, 3 people have been sent back to France, but we've received 3 people at least from France, to say nothing of the hundreds more that have come across in small boats just yesterday. We'll be talking to Shoaib Khan, who's a human rights and immigration barrister, about this in just a second. We'll also get your reaction to that, and we're asking the question this morning, should the UK recognise a Palestinian state? That is what Keir Starmer is going to do at the UN General Assembly this week. We will see what you think about that. So far, basically everybody seems to be against, although we've had a very interesting interview with Dale Vince, the ecotricity billionaire, who has been on with Mark Dolan a bit earlier on today. We'll get your reaction to all of that. Donald Trump has a view on all of this too. We had a big press conference this week. We'll talk about that. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note. We'll have some of those this hour. Less than a minute, please. Tech Up Dave is on the case. Send those through and we'll play those out. 0344 499 1000. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on the same number as well. Loads to discuss between now and 12:30. And I'm back tomorrow between 10 and 1 as well with some top political guests too. Loads to discuss. Want to make sure you're part of the conversation. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, lots of people getting in touch on the Palestinian question and in regard to Trump as well. Leslie says it was very telling during the Trump press conference. Trump spoke about the atrocities on the 7th of October and the hostages still held. Starmer is a weak and despicable man. Anne in Belfast says Hamas said they would repeat October the 7th again and again. One more on this. Babs says for Starmer to recognise a Palestinian state is beyond contempt. He is doing it in the midst of the Jewish New Year, which is an absolute disgrace. He said he had extended family in Israel. He has no conscience whatsoever and plays to his Palestinian pals. As Emily Damari said to him, shame on you. On the one in, one out, story as well. We're going to talk about that in a second with Shoaib Khan. We've got a message from Jason in the Lake District who says, no Zoe, talking about Zoe Billingham, who was on a little bit earlier on the debate desk, no Zoe, Labour are so low in the polls because they have betrayed the hard working people who do the right thing. It's all down to fairness. Thousands in and 3 out, and Zoe says it's clear that it is working. That's delusional in Jason's thoughts. So lots to discuss on all of this. We'll talk to Shoaib Khan in just a second, but on the one in, one out deal specifically, the Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary David Lammy welcomed it yesterday. He was in a prison yesterday. He talked about it there. This is what he said.
It has been very important to increase the numbers of people that we are returning to the countries from which they are from, and that's gone up 14%. I think over 35,000 people has been returned, and I played an important role in that as Foreign Secretary, and that work must continue. This pilot with France is a milestone because it sends an immediate deterrence to people, many of them coming obviously across the water, that we will send them back, and it is our hope to see that grow over the coming months and years, because we have to bear down on the gangs and we have to smash the model effectively, and we have to ensure that those who do not have a right to be here are sent back to the countries from which they're from.
Donald Trump had a slightly different take on tackling the crisis. On Thursday, he spoke at a big press conference with Keir Starmer during that historic second visit. This is what the President of the United States said.
I told the Prime Minister I would stop it, and it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use, but it's going to destroys countries from within. And we're actually now removing a lot of the people that came into our country. It's a very hard chore. We were given a very, very bad hand. Millions of people came in from prisons and mental institutions. We have to remove them.
President of the United States, Donald Trump there. Well, let's speak to Shoaib Khan, who's a human rights and immigration barrister. Shoaib, you're very welcome to the programme this morning. What do you think of this scheme? We've managed to send 3 people back, but hundreds came over the channel on small boats yesterday.
Good morning. I think personally, from when it was announced up till now, I don't think we should be trying to make too much sense of it, to be honest. I think it is one of those things, like the ill-fated, counterproductive, quite awful Rwanda plan, which is just something, where the government can see it's failing miserably, and then it needs to be seen to be doing something. So it's just one of those things, really. Even the numbers, I think, even on its own terms, it's not just about saying it will fail, it won't succeed. But even on its own terms, what are we saying? Even there, David Lammy talking about being a deterrent. What? So, if you come to the UK illegally, on a small boat, there is a 3 in 1,000 chance you might be returned. And so most of these very, very desperate people, we think they won't make that journey.
As you correctly point out, Shoaib, we know that hundreds of them have made the journey and they haven't been deterred from the start of this scheme at all, have they?
No, they haven't. And obviously, I think it was clear to anyone who's ever worked in this field or dealt with these people or even met a few or talked to a few of those or has any idea about it, it wasn't going to work. And obviously one hope that we had, obviously for some of us are hopes, for some of us slightly depressing. There are lots of lawyers in this cabinet, the Prime Minister himself. And so you just thought that, okay, they would have some idea how these things work. Whereas, previous governments, for instance, Rishi Sunak, other Prime Ministers were really dependent on the advice from people like Suella Braverman. So now at least we thought, okay, they might be doing something, so they have some idea how courts work, how our systems work, how human rights laws work, how international laws work. But we've not really seen anything. If anything, they just, again, all we're seeing is lawyers being condemned, judges being criticised, and the government has absolutely no idea what to do.
Within the law as it stands at the moment, as the law stands, I'm not talking just at this exact point about withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights. I'm not getting into any of that just at the moment, although I'd like to in a couple of minutes. I just wonder, Shoaib, is there a solution right now within the law to stop people coming across on boats? Or does the law, or would the law, hypothetically, need to be changed in order to stop that?
It depends what you mean. Obviously it's against the law. So if we're talking about the legal point, it's just like, how do we criminalize, lots of people are starving. How do we criminalize food theft? So the point is, you can't just keep locking them up. exiling them, deporting them, doing whatever. But at the end of the day, I think you have to see there's, widespread starvation. They don't have legal access to food. How do we get them food so they stop doing this? So, I mean, if you're talking about the law, then obviously the law says, okay, if you come here illegally, you'll be deported, or we'll have you, unless you have a claim for asylum, unless there's evidence or there's a strong risk that you will be persecuted or killed or, in your country, then you will be sent back. But the point is, how do you do that when there's, firstly, the sheer numbers, and then secondly, just so many, the way we deal with these people, even here when they come, so many of the issues that we're right. But another thing about this scheme in particular is, I just don't even understand, as I was saying, on its own terms, because the numbers won't go down, even if it works. The point is, one in, one out. So 500 people turn up, 50 of those we send back, and then in return we receive 50 others. So it's still 500 people. I mean, yes, we get some sort of say in who the people are going to be, but the numbers aren't going down. And I thought, isn't that the whole point of this government? What it's trying to do is we need to bring the numbers down. So even on its own terms, I just don't understand.
So how does that happen then? How do we bring the numbers down? How do we get to a situation where we're providing some form of asylum? Some of our viewers and listeners think we shouldn't provide any asylum at all. Some of them think there should be some asylum. We should take, quote unquote, our fair share. How do we do this without people coming across in boats?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously lots of points. Firstly, in terms of fair share, even with these numbers that come in, to be honest, I mean, considering the crisis in the world, considering what's happening, considering the number of persecuted and at-risk people around the world, considering the number of wars and invasions around the world, we don't take our fair share, even with those people.
So a lot of our viewers and listeners are going to find that very, very difficult to stomach, Shoaib, because we are taking an awful lot of people into this country when there's a lot of pressure on public services. I have boundless sympathy for people who are dealing with real crises in the world, but many of them are coming through safe countries. They could, in theory, claim asylum in those safe countries first, yet they're coming here. That's a slightly different argument, I suppose, but the point, I suppose, is, in regard to asylum, how do we stop people coming across in small boats?
Yeah, no, so I mean, firstly, just about fair share, most of them, I know lots of people say, why didn't you go to the first? Most of them do go to neighboring countries. So for Afghanistan, I know we know, or we think there's lots of Afghans here, but look at Pakistan, look at so many other neighboring countries in Asia, huge numbers, millions. So firstly, they do Turkey. So many other countries do take, many, many more times people than we take, and they're generally poorer countries than us. And then even Europe, obviously Greece, Germany, Spain, Italy, France, all of those take many, many more. So firstly, in terms of fair share, I don't think we do take our fair share. I think considering we're the 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever we are now, richest country in the world, we can afford to take more. We should take more, is the first thing. But having said that, any people, whatever the number of people is that we should take in, they shouldn't have to risk their lives on small boats. Like, for instance, why
you say you shouldn't have to risk their life on small boats. They don't have to do that. No one is compelling them and saying you must come across in a small boat, and no one is saying you have to come to the UK.
Yeah, I mean, well, no one's saying that, but then how do we ever take our fair share? Right now, whichever one country we think, okay, Ukraine, if we all, accept that that's a country that's been invaded, people are at risk there. If we hadn't actually sent flights there, if we hadn't actually brought those people home, how does a Ukrainian refugee, if you do consider they are genuine refugees right now, how does a Ukrainian family get to the UK right now? There is no way to do that. And that's the thing. Of course, if they go on to save their lives, they need to escape the war. They are going to try other means. And that's the point. The example I was giving.
Yeah, but again, I come back to the key point, Shoaib. They don't have to. They don't have to come across in a small boat. They don't have to risk their life. And there's no one compelling them to come to the UK.
Well, the war and their condition is compelling.
But it's not, Shoaib, because they're in a safe country. France is a safe country.
So you think all of them should stay in France? We should take no refugees?
I'm not saying that for a second. You're twisting my words.
No, what are we saying then?
What I'm saying is they don't have to come across in a small boat. You're talking about them risking their lives. You're talking about them coming across in small boats. They don't have to do that. There's no one compelling them to do that.
Sure. But okay, let's say our fair share is 3,000 people a year. Yes? How do those 3,000 people reach here? Right now, in the law and the system we have.
Well, we do have safe and legal routes. Safe and legal routes do exist.
From which countries? Where? Which countries?
We've taken people from Hong Kong. We've taken people from Ukraine. We've taken
for a very short period. We open it for a few weeks, and then that's it.
Well, we've still taken an awful lot of people, and what I'm saying is that
we have. But I mean, you're right. We've taken so many people from Ukraine. But has it actually damaged our country? Has it destroyed our country? Is my child not getting a school place because of the Ukrainians? Am I not getting a NHS
but
appointment
it's the cumulative. But show up. It's the cumulative effect of many, many more people. It's not a racist point. It's not a point against migrants, even specifically as people. It's not even a point against any other point within that. It is simply numbers. If you're in an area that doesn't have enough housing, that doesn't have enough GPs appointments, that doesn't have enough school places, and there's pressure on all sorts of services, if you bring in 50 people or 100 people from the next town, or people who are fleeing from Afghanistan who have no cultural links to that area necessarily, or no roots there, well, actually that is going to be a problem.
That is, but that's for the government of the 6th, 7th, 8th richest country in the world to figure out.
Well, it might be for them to figure out, but the problem, the problem is it may well be for them to figure out, and I agree with you on that point, but they haven't figured it out, and the people who are in those towns, villages and cities have to deal with that because the government hasn't sorted it out.
Yes, but let's put the pressure on the government, and that's the thing. I think when it comes to human rights, when it comes to other laws, we're always competing against each other. If the government gives you something you deserve, I'm like, oh, how come he gets it and not me? But the point is,
the government's not listening, show up. You know, and I know that the government's not listening. In 2010, people said very, very clearly, we want immigration to be sorted at the 2010 election, 2015 election, 2016 referendum on Brexit, immigration, huge issue, 2017 election, 2019 election, 2024 election, immigration, a huge thing, and no government, Conservative, Liberal Democrats as part of the coalition, Labour, none of them have sorted it out. So unsurprisingly, people say after 15 years, well, the government's not going to sort it out, maybe other solutions are needed, or maybe we can express our views about these people, about people coming here in a different way.
No, but like you just said, if the issue isn't those people, the issue is the failure of the government, then express your views about the government. I mean, I'm all for that.
But if the government's not listening, well, then people take to the streets. That's why we saw the Unite the Kingdom, part of the reason we saw the Unite the Kingdom march last week. People don't believe democracy is working. I'm not saying for a second that anybody should do anything violent, anything that's not totally legal and reasonable to do. I'm not saying that for a second. I would never condone violence.
Of course.
But the point is that people feel that the government and many political parties have left them behind on this issue and many others, show up.
Of course they have, but I just don't see that. I mean, obviously we're going into the rights or wrongs of the protest now, but I'm not sure what was that protest. Okay, the highest numbers, there was 1 million people on the streets of London. What's that supposed to achieve? I'm not sure. Do we think Keir Starmer's going to take that seriously? Is that really going to make a difference?
He might listen to it. We know that the Iraq...
And then what would you do?
Would you similarly say, Shoaib, that... Well, would you similarly say that the pro-Palestinian protest shouldn't happen because the government's not listening there?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not going into the right to... I'm for everyone's right to protest. I have no problem with those people. Fine, if you can gather 3 million, that's what London is for. London isn't for the elites, it's for all of us. So let's go and, enjoy it out in London. I have absolutely no problem with that. What I'm saying is, at some point, and again, it has to be what am I or you going to do? It has to be the government. But the point is, they have come up with a plan, they have listened, and there's this one in, one out.
Okay.
Like I said, even on data, how is that reducing the numbers? That's doing nothing.
Well, it's not reducing the numbers at all. Shoaib, listen, thank you. Interesting to talk to you. Shoaib Khan there, human rights and immigration barrister. Thank you to him for that. I want to take a call now from Jackie in Oldham. She's given me a ring at 0344 499 1000. Jackie, you're on the air. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. I'm embarrassed for Shabana Mahmood going on social media and talking about, what a great step this one in, one out is. I'm embarrassed for the Labour government that their sum total of expertise has come up with a policy that doesn't reduce migration. It doesn't reduce the incentive to come, because what's the worst that can happen to you? That you get sent back to France where you were.
Yeah, where you were already. Yes.
And also, it's all dependent on the French, whether they will accept who we want to send back.
Well, there's another big point in all of this, Jackie, that one of the 3 men who's been sent back, and it will all be men, one of the 3 men that's been sent back is Indian. We could, in theory, have sent him back to India. France can send him to India and then not have him. So actually, we receive 3 people, but we're giving effectively 2 back. And of that, that one person we could have sent him to India, we wouldn't even have needed to be part of the scheme anyway.
It's an absolute joke, Peter. And the thing is that you know, people are becoming more and more angry because this government, this parliament is pro-immigration into this country. And we have been saying for 25 years we want immigration reducing. We have voted, we have pushed back, we have done everything that we possibly can. And what is interesting is that with immigration, there is a massive industry. There is a lot of people making a lot of money, like the human rights lawyers, like the people that are providing accommodation and the government contracts for dispersing asylum seekers. There's a lot of people making a lot of money, and it is taking the mickey out of the British public who have to pay for all of this.
Jackie, wise words as always from you. Thank you very much indeed. That's Jackie there in Oldham. Let's hear a couple of voice notes. Firstly from Kelvin. Kelvin has been in touch about Dale Vince. This was an interview now about an hour and a half ago with Mark Dolan. We'll play a bit more of that a bit later on actually. Kelvin's been in touch about this.
Good morning, Peter. Dale Vincent, who was on the last show, just shows what sort of a plonker he is. He's a Labourite, he's a lefty, he supports and donates money to the Labour Party. You know, he totally loves the Labour Party. He wants to ban Jerusalem from the Eurovision Song Contest. What a complete and utter idiot. It just shows he's a racist towards Jews. He doesn't like Jews. He wants to, you know, free Palestine and you know, make it a state. So you can go around doing terrorism all you like and you'll get what you want eventually. That's what he's saying. And it's the same with Labour. You know, letting all these terrorists in the country, they support terrorism, whether you agree with me or not. They're letting rapists and murderers come into our country every day, and it can be stopped quite easily, but they won't do it because they haven't got the guts for it, you know. So therefore, they all support terrorism in a way, and it just shows what we've got in you know, in our government. A terrorist supporter, and he's one himself. Bye.
Thank you very much indeed, Calvin. Strong views in there. Dale Vince, of course, would deny that he's a racist. He would deny that it's an anti-Semite. I'm sure Keir Starmer would deny that he supports terrorism in any way. Quite the opposite is what he would say. But he's entitled to his opinion, as are you, Calvin. Let's hear from Lisa.
Good morning, Peter. It's Lisa from Canterbury. I think what I find most worrying, most concerning and most dangerous in our country, more than any other country, is that our government, our judges and our police are basing their conclusions and any other thing that they do, for example, like recognising Palestine, it's all based on a political view rather than what's correct and what the people want in this country. And that I find very disturbing. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I think you're right. I think this is much more, as I've said before, I think it's much more about the backbenches of the Labour Party looking over their shoulder at pro-Gaza MPs and pro-Gaza candidates. There are people like Wes Streeting, for example, who had a very, very small majority. He was almost beaten by a pro-Gaza MP in Ilford North. I think there are a lot of MPs who are really worried about this. They're worried about the rise of Jeremy Corbyn's party. It's in disarray at the moment, but still could be a big electoral force. Some pollsters say up to 10% of the vote could go to them. We'll talk more about this. We'll get more of your views. Use the break. Pick up the phone 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
since the October 7th massacre because that was a popular decision on the Palestinian street. And the reason that that barbaric violence was so popular among Palestinians is because they think the world is rewarding them for it. They see countries lining up to recognize a Palestinian state, not as a reward for peace, but as a reward for the October 7th massacre, and they get the message that terrorism works. This step that the UK is about to take will only make Hamas more popular.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you everyone who's been in touch, including Jane, who says, as the Prime Minister brought his cabinet in from recess to decide this, the whole government will have taken responsibility for this decision. The President does not agree on recognising a Palestinian state. It doesn't sit right at all. Kelvin in Macclesfield says, we could use the Navy to stop these boats if we had an agreement with France. Let our Navy and their Navy patrol the beaches. And in the waters close to the beach, there is no risk of drowning. It's in the French interest to do this, as it will stop them getting to France. And stop all freebies and benefits too. Problem solved. There's no such word as can't in the English. There is no such word as can't in the English dictionary. This lot simply don't want to stop them. Coming idiots, says Kelvin in Macclesfield. Gary in Birmingham. What he should have said is that the UK government will recognise Palestine as a state, not the UK people. Nikki says, Peter, with Keir Starmer recognising a Palestinian state, I wonder what his wife thinks of that, being Jewish, her extended family that live in Israel. Well, there are many Jews, of course, who would want, not many, but there are some who would want to recognise a Palestinian state. Most don't. Hi Peter, says this person, they should not recognise a Palestinian state. They have many Arabic states that they can go to. Israel has one. He's a traitor through and through. And Simon in Canterbury says, everyone is getting worked up, Cardi B, about Starmer recognising a Palestinian state. Don't panic, he can't even recognise what a woman is, says Simon. There was a very good one actually about the one in, one out deal. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, here we are. Barry says, morning Peter, morning Barry. I agree with David Lammy describing it as a pilot scheme because the only person going over to France is the pilot. That was very good. Let's hear a voice note from Chris.
Hi, Peter. Chris from Epsom. Let's just look at the detail. We've paid France something like £700 million to stop the illegal immigrants getting in their boats, which they failed to do miserably. So they get to our shores, so now we're going to have one in, one out. But what they don't tell you in the detail is, with the one that's coming in, is already vetted, so we'll have immediate access to all benefits, including housing, all social security benefits. Then they'll have a right to family reunions, so they can bring their wife and children over. So that's a strain on the public purse again. The one that we've sent back, that France is taking back, you won't believe this, we've got to pay for their accommodation costs. So France, just win, win, win. What is wrong with Starmer and his negotiations with Macron? And Lammy's a fool.
Thank you for that, Chris. Neville has some thoughts on the Middle East as well and recognising Palestine as a state.
Good morning, Peter. It's Neville from West Midlands.
on the point of recognising Gaza as a state. It doesn't meet the 4 UN conditions, criteria for statehood, which are 1, defined borders, 2, a population which is stable and within the borders, 3, a stable government capable of running the state, which they do not have, transparently do not have, and 4, recognition internationally. The idiots like Starmer are trying to give them number 4, but they will never qualify for number 3, which is a stable government capable of running the country. Okay, mate, thank you. Nice to talk to you. Neville, West Midlands. Bye.
Thank you, Neville. Appreciate that. And listen, you raised some really good points there. And I think the point, and I raised this to Zoe earlier, who runs a Palestinian state? Who's the government of that? What if they vote for Hamas? What if those people vote for Hamas? What do? What happens then? Does the international community say, well, that's democracy? What about Israel? What about the safety of Israel if Hamas is then running a Palestinian state? And actually, Elisa has been in touch on this and says on October the 7th has increased Hamas's popularity. She sent me some polling on that. Please inform your guests on that. Well, thank you, Elisa, for that. On the recognition of a Palestinian state, Heather in Girvan in South Ayrshire has been in touch. Heather, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
I've been saying about Israel and Palestine. They're both countries. They're not states.
That's the same thing, though, Heather, though, isn't it?
People get the facts right. It's an Arab state with various of different countries in the Arab states, like Israel and like the province of Palestine.
Sorry, Heather, I just don't follow what you're saying there. Israel is a sovereign state. The Palestinian territories aren't a state, as they are. They're not a country.
Well, Palestine is not a sovereign state. It's Arab is a sovereign state. I wish people get the facts right.
Heather, sorry, your facts aren't right on that.
Look at the geography of the Arab countries, because these Arab countries, like Israel, like the province of Palestine and Jordan and all the other countries and Gaza.
Heather, I'm really sorry, I just don't follow what you're saying there at all, but listen, thanks for your call. Robert's in Hertfordshire. Robert, 03444 499 1000 is the number he's called. What would you like to say, Robert?
Hello, Peter. What I'd like to say regarding the one in, one out, we've got 3 now that's gone, and I think 1,000 come yesterday. What I wanted to ask you, these 3, do they get paid to go back like the others did?
I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that, I don't know if it was 1,000, but certainly hundreds of people came yesterday. We don't know the official figure just yet, but what we do know, Robert, is that this, so far anyway, has not proved a deterrent.
No, the other thing is I've got a little bit of a gripe with you, to be honest. Now, you're my favourite presenter.
What have I done? What have I done?
Well, you had that guy on, the human rights lawyer, Shaw something.
Yeah, Shoaib Khan, yeah.
Right, pin him down, Peter. I mean, you had a chance to... How much you getting, mate? How much did you earn last year?
Not enough. Not enough, Robert. Listen, what should I pin him down on? What did he say that you disagreed with?
Well, everything. He wants to now bring them into... Look, the country's full up. It's got nothing to do with the way they're coming in. But, look, this is his bread and butter. Just looking at him made me feel... I can say it, just made me feel sick. You can't say it, I can say it. It just, look, he's earning...
Listen, I disagree with him, Robert. I absolutely disagree with him. But we're the home of free speech, and I want to make sure that people have their opinions so that you can agree or disagree with them, Robert.
Yeah, but ask him how much he's getting a pop. Ask him. You know, say, well, how much did you earn last year, mate?
He's entitled to earn a living, is he not?
Sorry?
He's entitled to earn a living, is he not?
Yeah, but this is a lucrative... Oh, all right. Well, listen, I'm on an argument here.
No, Robert, listen, I appreciate your thoughts, I really do. What do you think should happen with the one-in, one-out scheme? Just scrap it? What would your solution be?
Yes, it's laughable. It's laughable. Yeah, I'll tell you what's going to happen, Pete. Now, I just want to get something straight. My cousin was one of the organisers for the march last week. She's one of Tommy Robinson's Inner Circle.
Okay.
Now, right, there was 25 arrests, but that's not quite true. There was only 8 arrests from our side. The rest was the others, and that's what the media didn't print. There was only, even when you think 25 arrests is very low, but there was 8. There was only 8.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. And actually, in fairness to Tommy Robinson, he did say that he didn't want anybody to break the law. He didn't want anybody to undermine the message of that march. Did you go on it yourself, Robert?
No, I'm 73 now. I didn't go. Them days are gone. But just to let you know, I don't know if it's in the paper. He's being held in Panama at the moment.
Tommy Robinson is?
Yeah.
In Panama?
Yeah. Yeah, he got off a plane somewhere else.
Right.
And then they stung him. Well, just because of who he is. He gets it all the time.
Gosh, OK, well, I didn't know that. We'll look into that. Thank you very much, Robert. Appreciate that, and appreciate your kind words as well. And do you know what? It's absolutely fine to disagree with my presenting style, with things I say. It's all fine. Robert is a very, very cherished and loved viewer and listener, as is everybody else. And if you disagree with me, you think, you should have said something else or whatever, you give me a ring. That's fine. We have a conversation. We're adults. We're adults. We have a conversation. We're not those lefties who cancel people and say, oh, you said something I disagree with, you have to lose your job, or you have to go, or I'm never going to listen to you again. We're not those people. We disagree agreeably. We disagree without being disagreeable. That's what we do on this station. Thank you to Chris. He says, what a surprise. The highly paid immigration lawyer thinks we should all take in more immigrants. Our fair share, apparently. Dave says, morning, Peter. If you stop offering these illegals legal aid, then the human rights lawyers won't want to know. Mick says, Peter, not a day goes by without a cyber attack or tech failure, yet the government forces more with ID and banking. It is lunacy. Or has someone got an interest? He says there. William says, if we held a referendum on the ECHR as the Swiss did and get a majority, we can make our Supreme Court superior to the ECHR, as is such invalid now. Breaking news, Robert was right, more than 1,000 migrants crossed the channel yesterday in 13 small boats, according to government figures. These are official figures. It's just broken 1,072 people. Is the one in, one out scheme working? We've got rid of 3 of them. 3. Yesterday alone, 1,072 people. That's got to be some sort of record. We'll talk more about that in a second. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, that breaking news just in the last few minutes is that 1,072 people came across the channel in small boats yesterday. This is the fact that 13 small boats, according to government figures, this is the government, the Home Office put this out this morning, 13 small boats 1,072 people have come across the channel. It's farcical. So this week, in one day, not even in a week, in one day, 1,072 people. In a week, we've managed to get rid of 3 people, except we haven't, because we're taking 3 from France as well. So the net in is 1,075. If you add 1,072 to 3, that's 5. And the out is 3. So that's how they're going to solve this problem, apparently. Michael Simmons is the economics editor of The Spectator. I want to talk to him about Rachel Reeves. I want to talk about tax hikes. I want to talk about a VAT blow. But Michael, yet more pressure on the economy when you have another 1,072 people. All of them are going to have to go somewhere. They'll probably be put into hotels or some other form of accommodation. From an economic perspective, yet more pressure on the economy, on this country, and on public spending.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, it's just more costs piling up. You know, we're spending billions of pounds on housing these people because we've got these laws that say that, you know, they have to be given some kind of minimum standard of living. That's not to mention, obviously, the money that we're paying France for these various deals that don't actually seem to have much effect. So yeah, it's just another spending pressure to add on to the many, many unsustainable spending pressures that Rachel Reeves is having to contend with.
Michael, you've been writing a lot about this. You've been explaining economics to idiots like me. You got a B in GCSE maths who don't really understand economics, but sort of have to for my job. Chancellor Rachel Reeves warned her tax hikes risk sending the UK economy into a doom loop. What is an economic doom loop?
So basically, it's this idea that we always hear every time there's a budget that there's this black hole, you know, that it's 10 billion, it's 20 billion, it's 30 billion that the Chancellor has to raise to meet her fiscal.
And you know what they say, Michael? You know, a billion here, a billion there. Sooner or later, it all adds up to real money.
Well, exactly. And this doom loop idea is that, okay, she feels that she can't cut to the size of the state because her backbenchers won't allow her to, so she'll raise taxes. And that might, you know, plug the hole for 1 year. But the problem is these taxes stop companies from innovating, they stop companies from growing. So we have worse GDP figures, and then there's another hole to fill, and the cycle sort of loops round. So that's this idea of the doom loop, is that you raise taxes to get you out of your immediate crisis, but it just makes things worse in the long run, and this loop just continues.
And in regard to a £3 billion VAT blow, shoppers switching to cheaper food, unsurprisingly, that's what people are doing. Unsurprisingly, with food inflation as high as it is, people want to eat cheaper food. They want to make sure that there's so many pressures on household bills. We saw yesterday about bills going up yet further because of net zero. There are many, many pressures on people at the moment. They're going to try and take the cheaper option, but of course taxes will almost certainly rise in some way anyway in the budget, because they have to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you're talking about there is the more basic food items, you don't pay VAT on them. And as food inflation continues to go up, this week it passed 5%. As you say, people are going for those more basic items.
What are those sort of basic items that don't have VAT on them? Are you talking rice, bread, things like that?
Yeah, things like sandwiches. This is why there was this argument about the M&S strawberries and cream sandwich, about whether it was a sandwich or whether it was confectionery. And HMRC have various rules about the amount of sugar in something to say whether it's an essential item and therefore is 0 rated for VAT. But it's not just that that's, you know, hampering her VAT tax take and putting these prices up. The Bank of England and the ONS now have both basically said that the policies she brought in the last budget, specifically this £25 billion increase to employer national insurance, but also the increase in the minimum wage, is partly what's pushing these food prices up, because retail employers tend to be people who employ people closer to the minimum wage threshold, closer to the lower national insurance limit. And obviously, these are profit-making companies. You can criticise them, but what they're going to do, they've passed that cost on to the consumer.
Well, that's inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what's going to happen. She's made this manifesto commitment, which some people now think she'll have to break, about not touching the big three taxes: income tax, employee national insurance, and VAT. If she sticks to that, she might make problems like this worse, because she'll go for smaller areas that have sort of less, you know, mass interest for them. So smaller. She might go for smaller businesses. She might go for areas in the gambling sector, for instance. And the problem is, when you sort of just squeeze these small sectors, the problems actually kind of mount up because it's one area under such pressure. And I think that's why people start to argue for her to do a more broad sort of tax hiking budget. But that's something she's not going to want to do because herself and the Prime Minister have promised not to do it on multiple occasions.
How big is the black hole?
Well, this is the £10 billion question. The highest estimate we've had was...
You're not getting £10 billion to answer it, by the way, Michael, just to clarify.
Yes, the highest estimate we've had was 50 billion. I think it'll be more in the sort of 20 to 30 billion range, but it's looking to get higher because she had some awful news this week, which is the OBR, who are the organisation that essentially decide how big that black hole is. They have basically, well, it's been leaked, and if it turns out to be true, that they have said that over the past few years, we've been over-optimistic about productivity growth, and we're going to correct that at this budget. Now, that correction alone could cost her over £10 billion. So the black hole estimates, are getting bigger whenever any of these stories came out. But if I was to guess, I would say somewhere between 20 and 30 billion pounds.
I'm not an economic expert by any stretch of the imagination, but Michael, what it seemed to me politically, I do know a reasonable amount about politics, and what it thought to me politically, I think Labour bet the farm on growth. So what I understand, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that money for government departments only comes from 4 places. You can tax, you can borrow, you can get growth, or you can move it from another pot. You can move it from another bit of the economy or bit of public spending into that pot. And my view is very clearly that Labour bet the farm on growth. On Friday last week, we were told 0% growth. In your view, is the economic strategy of this government working?
Well, it's clearly not working. Otherwise, we wouldn't be discussing this black hole. And as you say, there wouldn't have been that story about 0% growth on Friday. And the problem is, I think betting the farm on growth, going for growth, is completely the correct strategy. That's what any government should be doing. It's the only thing that really increases the money that the government has to spend, that increases living standards for all of us. The problem is, it's all well and good, this government getting elected and saying growth is going to be our lodestar, we're going to grow our way out of all of Britain's problems. But they've done that at the same time as all their different ministries are coming out with anti-growth policies. We've got Ed Miliband pursuing net zero, which is leading to this country having higher energy costs, both for domestic and industry, of almost anywhere else in the world. You've got the tax rises I mentioned in the last budget and the tax rises that will be coming in this budget that hamper businesses. And also we've got the employment rights bill coming up, which is going to make it really unattractive for employers to take risks on new staff. So we're going to see more job losses. So, the government might say it's going for growth and it might think it's going for growth, but its actions need to change if it's serious about that strategy.
And just, Michael, first of all, thank you, as always, Michael Simmons, their economics editor of The Spectator. And just to clarify, very, very important thing to clarify in regard to food and VAT on food, a Jaffa cake is a cake and not a biscuit. It is a cake factually in law, 1991 VAT case, because McVitie successfully argued that a cake goes stale, goes hard when it is exposed to air, whereas a biscuit goes soggy. One man who knows a lot about biscuits is, of course, Tech Up Dave, who supplied me with custard creams this morning, but a Jaffa cake is a cake. If you learned nothing else from this programme this morning, let it be that. Lots more to discuss, including your opinions, are coming up after the break. Stay with us.
since the October 7th massacre because that was a popular decision on the Palestinian street. And the reason that that barbaric violence was so popular among Palestinians is because they think the world is rewarding them for it. They see countries lining up to recognize a Palestinian state, not as a reward for peace, but as a reward for the October 7th massacre, and they get the message that terrorism works. This step that the UK is about to take will only make Hamas more popular.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Nick has been in touch with a voice note. Let's hear what Nick has to say.
Good morning, Peter. It's Nick from Loughborough. I'm aghast that anybody could think that Starmer even contemplating recognising Palestine is a good idea. I think the mere concept of it brings shame on this country. And Starmer is willing to sell us down the river and make us look ludicrous on the world stage just to appease his left-wing backbenchers that are terrified of losing their seats to the pro-Palestinian parties which won a handful of seats at the last election. This is traitorous, in fact, and I'm appalled. And for once, I'm ashamed to be English if this happens. Peter, have a good weekend.
Nick, thank you as always. Nick sends in voice notes every now and again, and we're always very grateful for them. So, Nick, thank you. Daryl says, should Starmer recognise Palestine? No. Israel have put forward the two-state solution many times. Many times this has been rejected by Palestinians and by Hamas. It cannot work. It will not work while the radical ideology of Hamas is allowed to prosper. Unlike men, you cannot easily get rid of an ideology. It may take 100 years, generations for the region to get rid of it. Until you do, a Palestinian state will never exist as an independent country. So that is the view of Daryl. Let's hear the view of Susan in Hertfordshire. She's giving me a ring at 0344 499 1000. Susan, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, hi, good morning, Peter. Thanks for taking my call.
Morning.
I think that it's actually quite refreshing to hear your phone in and your voice notes after Dale Vince this morning. But I think the important thing to remember is I'm not quite sure what this government's going to be recognising, because as some of your voice notes and callers have said, there are no borders, there's no leadership, there's no parliament, and there's no real desire for peace. And I think an important thing to remember is that in 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza totally. Every Jew, alive, dead, every Israeli, they even dug up graves and took dead bodies back to Israel in an effort for peace, to give the Gazans a beautiful place. And I actually went to Gaza when it was part of Israel. It was a paradise. It was where roses bloomed in the desert. And within a year, Hamas took over, destroyed all the infrastructure within the country, and Israel ended up with a terror enclave on its border. So if the Israelis are a little bit reticent to say, let's try again, I think as British people, we can understand why. Or maybe we can't. I don't know. You tell me. I mean, you were there a few
last week. Susan, I cannot disagree with a single word that you've said there. The thing that was most striking about all the things I heard, and I heard many, many different perspectives and ideas, one was from a former national security advisor to Israel, and he said, look, this isn't about hearts and minds. This isn't about convincing people. This isn't about holding out a hand of friendship to the Palestinians. We've tried that. This is about survival of Israel as a state. This is about defence. And yes, It's horrible. It's horrible that people get killed. It's horrible that civilians get killed. The point for Israel, though, is that they believe, anyway, Netanyahu believes, not all Israelis believe that, and there are many who are against Netanyahu, as you well know, Susan, but the survival of the state, he believes anyway, will be done through dismantling Hamas as a military or paramilitary organisation, and that's the only way to do it. And this strategy, I mean, the interesting thing is, with all the outcry, particularly recently, about the humanitarian side of things, the point was that the strategy hasn't changed. It's got worse, but the strategy hasn't changed. The strategy is the same. And I think all the points you make are perfectly valid. They're very, very reasonable points. And I would ask the question, if you put yourself in the shoes of Israel, as I think so few in the international community do, because they just think Israel's bad and does everything wrong and it's a terrible state. If you put them in your shoes and you say, hold on a second, we've tried this, we've tried a sort of a state in Gaza, and what's happened is that was thrown back in our face tenfold, and through the 7th of October. There was a woman I spoke to at Kibbutz near Oz, which is where the Bibas family lived. The father's still alive. He was taken as a hostage. The wife was taken as a hostage. The 2 children were hostages. The children were strangled to death. A 4-year-old and a baby strangled to death by Hamas. There was a woman there who I spoke to who was not taken as a hostage, who was terrified, was in a safe room. I was in the safe room. She brought me to it and showed me exactly what she did. She used her vacuum cleaner to secure the door. And she said, well, look, I gave people from the Gaza crossing, the border, I gave them a lift. I gave them a lift to the hospital when they had problems, and I helped them. And what happened was that some of those people and some of the people who worked in the kibbutz, who came across the border and worked in the kibbutz, they gave intelligence, information to Hamas about where people lived and how to get onto the kibbutz. How do you trust those people?
But the thing is that people don't seem to realise, and you've been, and thank goodness for you, and thank goodness for people like Julia. And Julia actually said on her programme, the world and Britain could learn so much from Israel.
Agreed.
And, you know, the Gazans could have the most amazing life if they put down their arms and they said, you know what, we're going to live in peace with these people. You know, in 2014, when there was another incursion that went on, I remember hearing this woman say she lived on a kibbutz. She said she used to lie in bed at night and hear like scurrying and noises under her bed, and it turned out this was part of the tunnel network.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine not feeling safe in your own home? We would never imagine what that's like here. But anyway, listen, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do and for always trying to put another perspective towards your listeners and for the truth and the honesty. I mean, it's so rare these days that, you know, I'm just eternally grateful to you, Peter, really.
Susan, that means a huge amount. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate your call. That is Susan in Hertfordshire there. That's a really, really nice thing for her to say. And listen, there's so many stories that need to be told that aren't told. There's so much that so much of the media just doesn't cover, just doesn't tell you. And we will try to do that on this station. We always try to bring you stories and talk about things that other people aren't talking about, perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. We are the home of free speech. We're a station where your voice can be heard. It can be heard in the next half an hour if you give me a ring about whatever's on your mind. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We're going to talk about the visit from Trump as well next.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell with you for the next half an hour, and indeed tomorrow between 10 and 1, so I hope you can join me for that as well. Loads to discuss. Immigration's a big issue, the one in, one out scheme, although we know, breaking news in the last sort of half an hour, 40 minutes, that 1,072 people have come to our shores. We've got an immigration expert, a former advisor to the Home Office, Claire Pearsall, will be with us in a second, as will Laurie Laird, the US economic and political commentator, who will be looking back on Trump's visit. Developments as well in regard to Ted Cruz. Remember, he ran for president. Lion Ted, he was known as. He says that the US broadcast regulator acted like a mafioso in regard to Jimmy Kimmel, the late night host who was cancelled. His show was taken off the air because he criticised those who were talking about Charlie Kirk and ascribing all sorts of thoughts to the killer, or alleged killer anyway, of Charlie Kirk. We'll talk about that. We'll take your comments as well and your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Plenty to discuss in the next half an hour here on Talk. Thank you to Chris in Chester, who says, "Hi Peter, apparently Starmer never meets his own backbenchers. If he doesn't want to acknowledge them, why would he acknowledge these poor polling numbers?" There are a number of backbenchers, I've spoken to some of them, who rarely, if ever, have a chat with Keir Starmer. Neil in Labour-obliterated Wales, as he calls it, says, "How does recognising a Palestinian state benefit the UK? Simple question, but cannot find an answer." Paul in Hartlepool says, "If we do not change this government, and especially Starmer, we will end up bankrupt and friendless. There's more chance of Hartlepool winning the FA Cup than this Labour government succeeding in any area whatsoever," says Paul in Hartlepool. Paul, I know very little about football, but I know that Hartlepool FC are unlikely to win the FA Cup. Leslie says, "Sickening Starmer taking credit for the Trump deals. Any Prime Minister would have secured the deals." Well, we'll talk about that with Laurie Laird, who's a US economic and political commentator. You're very welcome to the programme, Laurie, as is Claire Pearsall, the former Conservative government advisor. Just before we get into the economics and everything that happened, I just want to play a clip from Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, Lion Ted, who says that the US broadcast regulator acted like a mafioso in regard to Jimmy Kimmel. We'll get your view on this in a second, but let's take a listen to what Ted Cruz said on his podcast, The Verdict, with Ted Cruz.
He's a good guy. He's the chairman of the FCC. I work closely with him. But what he said there is dangerous as hell. We're going to cancel ABC's license. We're going to take him off the air, so ABC cannot broadcast anymore. And I got to say, he threatens it. He says, "We can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way."
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, "Nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it."
I don't know about you, but when he did the mafioso voice, I slightly went into a whole body cringe. It was just kind of awful. Listen, Laurie and Claire are with us. We asked them to come on the programme. We made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Laurie, what do you make of what Ted Cruz said there?
I agree with you, Peter. Terrible New York accent. Absolutely terrible. Ted Cruz is from Texas. But I am surprised that somebody is stepping out of line. Somebody in the Republican Party is criticizing Donald Trump. We've not seen a great deal of this. We have seen law firms fall into line. We have seen the Republican Congress fall into line. We've seen universities fall into line. I don't know if this is the start of a trend, but I am very surprised to see Ted Cruz criticize Donald Trump.
Your thoughts on this, Claire?
Yeah, I think Laurie's quite right. It's unusual to have that kind of stepping out of line and direct criticism of what Donald Trump has wanted his government to do. But I think it's an important conversation to have. I think freedom of speech is something that's very important to both the UK and the US. And I don't want to see people getting cancelled just because somebody doesn't like what they say. Now, Jimmy Kimmel said something that wasn't correct and deserves to be pulled up on that. But to be cancelled, I'm not so sure. But I think that this is going to be a war that is going to carry on running. And I don't think that Donald Trump is going to take this quietly.
There are 2 points I suppose I would make. One is that Charlie Kirk, of course, was someone who said, "Prove me wrong." That was his phrase that he used very often, and I think he wouldn't be too pleased that Jimmy Kimmel had been cancelled. The other thing with Jimmy Kimmel is he has a right to free speech. He doesn't necessarily have a right to his own programme on ABC, and that was perhaps a commercial decision as well. It's really interesting in regard to what Trump is saying. I just want to remind ourselves about what Trump's advice was in regard to stopping the boats. Immigration, a very, very big issue, of course, for both countries. But this was at the press conference with Keir Starmer earlier this week.
I told the Prime Minister I would stop it, and it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use, but it's going to destroys countries from within. And we're actually now removing a lot of the people that came into our country. It's a very hard chore. We were given a very, very bad hand. Millions of people came in from prisons and mental institutions. We have to remove them.
Well, in terms of that advice, Claire, it's a fascinating one and a very, very contrasting approach from what Trump has done versus what Keir Starmer has done. We've just heard in the last sort of half an hour, 40 minutes or so, that 1,072 people have come across on small boats to this country in the last 24 hours or so. This week, we've managed to send 3 people to France, and we're taking 3 people back as a result. Those numbers are in stark contrast, aren't they, Claire?
Well, just slightly. I mean, when you look at what Donald Trump has managed to do in the US by building the alligator Alcatraz, as it's been lovingly known, the UK has a lot of catching up to do. Now, this is an issue that pretty much every single government has struggled with. They're looking for a deterrent. They're looking to try and be tough and stop the boats and smash the gangs, but they've got absolutely nothing to back it up. The one in, one out scheme, I think, was always doomed to failure. We saw at the beginning of the week that flights didn't even take off because of legal challenges, and now we've managed to return 3 people. We don't know if there'll be any more coming in from France. I suspect the number is going to be higher than 3. We're going to take those people. We'll probably end up taking families. And I think the British public are looking at this saying, why can't you be a little bit more like Donald Trump? Why aren't you stronger? The UK is not getting anything done.
Laurie, from an economic perspective, this big and historic second state visit from Donald Trump wasn't just about the pomp and ceremony, it was also about economic investment. Are you confident that that economic investment will come, will actually be a tangible thing, and may help the dreadful growth figures, 0%, that this country is having as we go into a very difficult budget period for Rachel Reeves?
Look, you bring up a very good question. Will this promised investment materialize? And that is entirely unclear. I was surprised to see the pledges of investment that came with Donald Trump's visit. A lot of investors have been wary of the UK for a number of reasons. The biggest reason is energy costs are so much higher in the UK than they are in Europe, than they are in Asia, than they are in the US. And AI, the computer stuff, is really energy intensive. And in fact, one of the deals came with a cooperation with Shell, the energy company, to find a way to power these AI farms. I am surprised to see this. Let's see whether this money materialized. Both sides, both the US and the UK, wanted happy news, wanted to present happy news. Let's see what happens here.
Claire, are you confident that this state visit was worth it?
I think it's always worth it. We need to be on terms with the US president. That special relationship has to be kept going. But I'm suspicious as to what the UK is going to give in return for this vast investment. The details really aren't there. I think you're looking at some conversations around energy costs and also things like digital services tax, which the AI industries across the globe are looking at, saying the UK is not an attractive place because of that and because of the regulations surrounding the online safety bill. So it'd be interesting to see what is going to get watered down, what is being offered up, and are we going to get cheap energy out of this for the rest of the country? Now, that would be a really big win.
Laurie, your perspective on that?
I think Claire brings up a very good point with the Digital Services Act. I'm surprised that this didn't come up in any of the conversations when Donald Trump was here. I do suspect that that will be watered down. We don't know what the quid pro quos were behind closed doors, right? But we know that Donald Trump is really angry about the Digital Services Act. He doesn't like when foreign countries put any parameters on U.S. companies. So I suspect quietly this will be watered down. The Digital Services Act doesn't bring too much income in. It's at best $2 billion a year. But Rachel Reeves needs to find some money, and if she has to water that down in hopes of a good relationship with Donald Trump down the road, she's going to have to find some cash from somewhere else.
Laurie and Claire, thank you very much indeed. We heard from Laurie Laird, their US economic and political commentator, and Claire Pearsall, who is a former Conservative government advisor on immigration. Lots to discuss after the break. But before I do, let me just read out a few messages. Eamon in County Down, who says the illegals crossing in boats can't claim asylum until they reach Britain. Why don't we intercept them and take them to a moored cruise ship or similar, where they can be processed offshore and then eventually relocated to a British overseas territory? The message will soon get out, says Eamon. Eamon, that's a fair point, but are you going to get 1,072 people on a boat? What happens if more come tomorrow? Where do we have those people stay? But it's a reasonable point, certainly, and thank you for it. Always good to hear from viewers and listeners in Northern Ireland as well. Lisa says, until all countries that are affected by high levels of immigration, legal and illegal, stop passing the ball, blaming one another, and accept that the only way to find a solution is to cooperate, we will see the rise of far-right populists who will offer more and more extreme solutions. Matthew says, I love the way your immigration guest earlier on says we must take our fair share. However, the British public have said no. We don't want any more. It's about time the opinion of the British public is taken into account rather than the opinion of an immigration lawyer, who I'm sure is doing very nicely. Thank you very much. Teresa says that so-called immigration barrister is indeed part of the problem. His incoherent ramblings were not making sense. Great show. NB will be getting your book. Congratulations, says Teresa. Teresa, thank you. Hope you enjoy it. Another Peter has been in touch, who says the government need to put on trial for crimes against the UK people. They're not above the law. We need to change things so they can be held accountable for failing to deliver what they promised in their manifesto and the reason why they were voted in. Until this happens, it's hard to see that anything changes. Sean in Bridlington. Sean, I haven't heard from you in a little while. Good to hear from you. How dare our so-called Prime Minister recognise a terrorist state, yet he doesn't recognise our ally Taiwan? Kaz in Staffordshire. Morning, Peter. Great show as usual. 1,072 in and 3 out. The 1 in, 1 out seems to be working then. Says Kaz in Staffordshire. She didn't actually say she did a thinking emoji, and I've interpreted that as a I hope that's okay, Kaz. Graham and Bushy says 1,072 people making the crossing and 13 boats. That's 82 people per boat. What happened to Yvette Cooper's promise that having more than 80 people in a boat will be a criminal offence? Very good point, although I suppose are they or are they not all in that boat? We don't know. Hello from Richard in the West Midlands. It's good to know that the law has clarity as to the question of whether a Jaffa cake is a cake or a biscuit, but can a Jaffa cake have a penis? No, it can't. Ed Davey, interestingly, walking into Liberal Democrat conference, managed to do so with a marching band, and he was sort of, he had that the what do you call it, the band, the baton. Thank you, the baton, and he was waving it. I mean, are we meant to take you seriously? Falling off a surfboard? Honestly, I despair. Sharon and Bill are on the way back home from Eastbourne. They say, on the subject of cake, what about tea cakes? The marshmallow and chocolate ones that have a biscuit base, so are they technically not a cake? I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to set in the next 10 minutes a little task for Tech Up Dave, and that is to find out about tea cakes, about the marshmallow and chocolate tea cakes. Are they classified as a biscuit or a cake? Tech Up Dave is on the case, and if we find out in the next few minutes, we will let you know, Sharon. A break now. Your opinions, voice notes and calls and messages coming up next. Stay with us.
since the October 7th massacre because that was a popular decision on the Palestinian street. And the reason that that barbaric violence was so popular among Palestinians is because they think the world is rewarding them for it. They see countries lining up to recognize a Palestinian state, not as a reward for peace, but as a reward for the October 7th massacre, and they get the message that terrorism works. This step that the UK is about to take will only make Hamas more popular.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to Max in Warwickshire, who said, I love Trump's visit. It was lovely to see him on his best behaviour. And Starmer squirming. He's the worst Prime Minister ever, other than the lettuce Liz Truss, says Max in Warwickshire. And one person, short message, but a very good one. No to Palestine. I want Britain and the British people recognised first. Stark. Interesting. And will stay with me. Mark in Lincolnshire is on the line. Mark, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi there, Peter, mate. Great show, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah, what it is, you made a comment, I think, was it a caller that rang up about the human rights lawyer? You made a comment about he has a right to earn a living. Well, I have to disagree with you. Yes, he has a right to earn a living, of course he does. However, when that living's coming off the expense, the misery of millions of other people... Oh,
you're right, Mark. The system needs to be changed.
Well, precisely, as I said to the producer, whoever it was that spoke originally, there's not a single thought process within these people that ever, as human rights lawyers, that ever makes them think, well, hang on a minute, as a human rights lawyer, yes, I've got to look at the human rights of my client, but I also have to look at the human rights of the people that my client will impact.
Yes.
And that never happens. That thought process seems to be completely void from their minds, or devoid from their minds. And, it frustrates the hell out of me because, as far as I'm concerned, when the great Mark takes office in this country, this nation will see a radical change. Believe you me, because people like him, people like 70% of the government, the activist judges, all these people will be considered traitors of the state. They will be locked up and they'll be breaking bloody rocks, because that's how passionately I feel about these people. Because
I think a lot of other people do as well, Mark. I think a lot of people will agree with you, and thanks for your call. That's Mark in Lincolnshire there. Let's hear a few more voice notes before the end of the show. Polly has some thoughts, like Mark, on the human rights lawyer we spoke to.
You can tell your human rights lawyer that I, as millions of other Brits, don't believe we should have a fair share of anybody. Nobody offers us asylum when we need something, so they can stay in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. Let's hear from Paul.
Good morning, Peter. Shelby Khan's argument that we're the 6th or 7th richest country in the world is simply not tenable. We owe about £3,000 billion at the moment. We rely on gilts being purchased every month, etc., etc., etc. We are one step away from bankruptcy, and the system simply can't take any more illegal immigrants or immigrants that don't offer us a source of their skills. We're just full up, and that's it. Great show. Good morning.
Thank you, Paul. Let's hear from Ian as well.
Hi, Peter. It's Ian from East Grinstead. Listening to Show Up talking to you, what always amazes me is these people say there are no legal routes, right? And then I hear that legally nearly 1 million people have come in. And I don't understand. These people say there are no legal routes. How come then we get 1 million people in? It just doesn't make sense. Can you please explain?
Well, some are coming here legally, and they're coming. They've got visas and so on. But it's a complicated picture there. Let's see if we can bring in Sharon's voice note as well.
Hi, Peter. This country is being led by donkeys, being led by an ostrich. It's not just the incompetence. If it is incompetence and not something more sinister, it is the absolute contempt and the need to insult the very voters and taxpayers of this country who put them into office. The one in, one out absurdity would insult a 7-year-old, and their brazen confession that the British people, the voters and taxpayers are of no consequence, whose rights are not respected, but where the rights of the illegal migrant and criminal take precedence, is abhorrent to any society. This is the most corrupt and morally bankrupt government I have ever seen in this country. From the rape gangs, the migrant crisis, our veterans who fought in Northern Ireland, to financing the terrorism of the PA who use our taxpayer money to reward the slaying of Jews. This government's days are numbered, and whose like I hope to never see again.
Sharon, thanks for that. Thank you to the tweeter who said over 1,000 a day. Now tell us this is an invasion, Keir Starmer, I dare you. Martin also says, thanks for the Jaffa cake clarification. It's been on my mind for a while now. And on the Tunnocks tea cakes clarification, Tech Up Dave has been Googling away. A Tunnocks tea cake is a modern chocolate-covered marshmallow confection, which some people classify as a biscuit due to its ingredients and preparation method. Yes, but where does it stand in law? We need that answer as well. Thank you to Tech Up Dave. He has been the technical operator, unsurprisingly, given his name, sadly not in law, but he is called Dave Rhodes and he is Tech Up Dave. Thank you to the producer Ryan Thrussell, the assistant producer Tommy Bateson, the setup producer Lauren Utley. The multicam output was by Davis Fang and Luke Vincent. The video editor was Ayabel Ferraz and the weekend editor was Dean Spencer. Thank you to all of them. Thank you to all of you. Sorry to the people who didn't get their call or voice note on. We'll try and do far more tomorrow. I'm on between 10 and 1, so I'll see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Lots to discuss. We've got the Conservatives on. We've got lots more to discuss. Hope to see you then. See you 10 o'clock tomorrow.